So I'm going to go ahead and get us started by introducing our speakers today. Don Helms is our vertical market manager, and his specialties are in AI and analytics, as well as other technological solutions. He's been with CBC for 4 years. And Brian Denmead is our field engineer with specialties in VMS platforms, deep learning rules engines, such as the AI Box, and other high-tech security solutions. And he's been with the company for 15 years.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We all know that there's a number of types of AI software on the market. With so many types, it can be kind of confusing on what fits best in your space that's out there. So today, we'll try to make the best use of your time and hopefully give you some of the information that'll help you better understand what's out there in the world of AI and how best to apply it to your applications. So let's dive in, shall we? So first thing out there is what the industry calls a reactionary and defensive post-alarm scrub. There's a lot of folks out there that use something like this, both on the manufacturing level and the service level. In most cases, it's applied on a post-event basis. The initial event's triggered by motion or an analytic event, or even sometimes an AI event. Then that once the video is verified by this software service, it's used quite often today in the market. However, it has some downsides. It can't always discern a false positive event from a positive trigger. And there are some monetary aspects as well. Often there's reoccurring fees for this service. So when the event is created, the higher the associated cost of the event, the total cost of those particular services that might be applied. Brian, did you want to add a little something to this?
Well, generally, it sums it up pretty well. Essentially, from a monitoring service, when you do have any type of alarm system, alarm trigger, there's typically the requirement of a guard or an officer to go on site to investigate what the cause was. And a lot of times that's a cost that is incurred by the monitoring company, and in some cases is shared with the customer.
Thanks for having that, Brian. So proactive AI technology is a little bit different. Basically, with proactive AI, event confirmation is performed at the time of the event. That means identification can be approved by the positive event triggers, but classification of said event can be confirmed as well. Often this is used by companies that provide monitoring as a service, like a video monitoring center or something along those lines. The reason being is the reduction of cost as it relates to the event and manpower hours will actually be increased by the false positives. Brian, you want to dab in on that?
It pretty much sums it up. I mean, the impact of events and alerts in general really do have an impact on the investment of time and manpower. So any way that helps reduce those events is always a welcome.
Thank you. So let's ask some questions about AI. Does AI require a degree to install and deploy? Meaning, do you have to be like a rocket scientist in order to get it done? Does AI involve installing all new hardware? Or can AI be adapted to an existing security system? So, AI technology options. Well, smart cameras have various levels of AI. Smart IoT devices have upgradable levels of AI, and then VMS platforms with AI support and scale. So those are a bunch of different options that are out there, and those can be kind of confusing. smart, actually upgrading with existing cameras out there. Smart camera benefits. An edge device offers embedded AI. That could be an analytics-based camera. It can be an AI-based camera. It could be any different types of things that are out there. But you can certainly use that and install that on a site and increase better alarm functionality. Smart motion detection based on classification. There's a lot of that out there as well. Some people brand it as AI, but it's not always AI. Those are all designed to replace the cameras that exist inside. Some limitations with smart cameras. The cost to retrofit existing camera sites. Normally, when an end user is out there, they've already paid a great deal of money for the cameras that they have on site, and doing a complete retrofit can get costly. New installs are preferred over legacy installations, meaning that you can't always upgrade what's out there. You don't need to go out and reinstall new cameras. You can't necessarily put technology on the older cameras, so this has to be done. Also, the actual install. Mounting in a lot of these things can be actually key. The angle of view. All that becomes impactful as it relates to AI accuracy. So, smart VMS server-side AI for existing video streams. There's some benefits to it. Higher level AI engine compared to edge devices, meaning that the system is a little bit more robust. It does have a great deal of resource. The software can be upgradable, and the AI analytics engine can be upgradable as well. You can actually factor for growth. It's applicable to existing and future video streams. Brian, do you want to touch on that as well?
It sums it up pretty well. I mean, essentially, whereas in the prior slide we saw the downside of replacing existing cameras with smart cameras is a great impact on the investment of the initial deployment. So the benefits of just taking a server and putting it in place, putting it on your network, and then being able to pull all those streams into the server and applying the analytics to those streams provides a much more affordable solution than what potentially would be replacing or retrofitting your entire infrastructure. So there's a good benefit when you start going from the smart camera option to the smart VMS option.
And the other big part of this too is economy of scale. We can bring more channels in at mass, so that's something that can be considered out there in the market as well.
Definitely, the scalability is much greater.
So, what are some of the limitations to that side of the house? The AI engine is a little bit more robust, as we mentioned before. So there's a high resource demand on a lot of this because of the server hardware. It's a lot more costly as it relates to actually commissioning a new system out there. And then quite often with some of the providers out there, there is a RMR, recurring monthly revenue commitment. So what about smart VMS? Well, it's in a more traditional VMS arena, normally there's a big investment, as we mentioned. So if you have multiple sites out there, this could get really, really costly. However, newer VMS platforms that are out there, like Quartz, offset those associated costs by offloading the AI algorithms to a more powerful graphics card. Not so much the powerful CPUs in the past, so you're getting more bang for your buck out of that. So let's talk a little bit about smart IoT, or embedded AI intelligence. So smart IoT offers different benefits. Usually there's a higher level module-based AI engine that's available. With that, it can offset a bunch of services like offer a bunch of services like facial recognition, LPR, abandoned object, some custom AI capabilities as well, like grip claw or safety helmet recognition. All of these things can be services. You also have capabilities to utilize it with fisheye cameras, as well as working with thermals. Ryan, feel free to chime in on that one.
Yeah, I mean the benefit of a modular-based AI engine is that you get to choose what you want to deploy versus just having a stack of analytics or having to purchase a stack of analytics that you may not fully utilize. So modular-based means you buy or deploy just what you need for different sites or different streams. So there's a lot of flexibility in that business model.
Good stuff. So, what are some of the limitations that are out there as it relates to AI? Well, AI as it relates to IoT, excuse me. Target design intent, basically that you're really working on something that's deployment specific. Because it is an IoT device, you might be restricted as to the amount of channels that you can utilize there or the expandability of hardware resources. Uh, you also need to also consider some of the design calculations that you'd be utilizing to apply those resources that you're working with. Brian, you want to add anything on that?
Yeah, I'll dig a little bit more into the targeted design intent. So, as mentioned, it's a modular design. So, the benefit of that modular design is you design the box based off of what you need. The inherent limitation of that same concept is the fact that it is an embedded box, so you do have limited resources. Unlike the server solution, you can't just drop in more memory or drop in a more powerful CPU. But the benefits of the modular design means that you're not configuring or designing a solution that is an overpowering or an over potential that also from a cost perspective could become very expensive. You're designing a box with intent. So if your intent is I just need zones and I want to have classification of the object that goes into that zone, then you design the box with that intent, as opposed to a box that may include every analytic under the sun, which out of those, let's just say 100 analytics, you may only use 5. So that modular limitation is, one hand, it's a bonus, and on the other hand, it's a limitation, but it's more of a benefit because it really helps you key in on the requirements of the analytic. And that goes a long way to providing a better solution for reducing those false positives.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. So now that we know what's going on in today's market for AI, so what's the best way to bring AI into what you might be doing today out there in the market? So some of the solutions that are out there, we can certainly upgrade or install all the cameras on site with AI-based cameras. But again, that gets kind of expensive. We can retrofit existing VMS that offers AI, still kind of expensive, or we can leverage smart IoT devices, which is much less expensive. So our solution for this is a smart IoT solution. Basically, it's our AI box. This IoT device can be added to VMS, it can be added to cameras, it can be added to NVRs, DVRs, providing everything out there is in a non-proprietary format. With AI Box, we can upgrade most systems on site without even replacing the cameras that are out there. We can add it to most cameras, providing we can get an RSTP stream. and utilize that. Brian, you want to add into that?
Nope, that's it.
So how do we bring AI Box online with NVRs or DVRs? Well, we can certainly use ONVIF protocol. We can use RTSP and import most of those streams directly. With VMS, it's pretty much similar. The same thing holds true with ONVIF or RTSP can be used. Do you need to integrate with an alarm system? Well, AI Box is ready to do the communication with an alarm in relay. We've also got the API available to do that integration. Need to integrate with access control. Well, the same connectivity is pretty much there. We've got the alarm in, we've got the RS-485 relay, and the API available. So on the integration side, it's easy integration with various APIs and protocols. We can use the ONVIF, we can use the REST, we can use email notification. That's quite frequently used. We can use TCP, we can use RS-485. Being that it's HTML5 based, we can certainly help configure with that with no plugin needed. Here's a really great example of a system layout. A primary video stream or a secondary video stream can be used from the Corning implementation, which communicates directly with the AI box. Then from there, we can process the events wherever they might need to go. So we spoke a little bit of some features. Let's talk about some of the benefits of the AI box. So AI is easily added to any existing system using existing video surveillance systems that are out there. Typically, it does not require any security system changes whatsoever. Again, providing we can get all the streams that we need to get, we should be fine. It's cost effective. The AI box delivers a maximum reliability with low implementation costs. There's no RMR, so there's nothing diving into your pocket to take a piece of your hard-earned RMR. It does not require complexity as replacing an entire system. It is a standalone IoT device. Supports multiple integrations. It's intuitive enough and very simple programming. So with the algorithms, we can allow a real quick integration. It's integrated into Corporal. It's integrated into Imix, Sentinel, SafeStar, Cronus, and a host of others. Some of the built-in features. These are the out-of-the-box features: object detection, object tracking, line crossing, loitering, enter-exit, and stop filters. Out-of-the-box classifications include human, vehicle, and bicycle. Ready options, meaning that there are other licensing available to work with the AI box. Abandoned object, LPR, facial recognition, fisheye or object detecting true fisheye cameras, which can be challenging for a lot of the AI that's out there today. Removed object, and then there are options for privacy maxing. These again are already licensed options. You utilize additional license. Customizations. Customization options that are out there could include examples like safety helmet or certain types of vehicle, truck, custom options. Maybe you're looking for certain types of animals or just certain humans or how they might be dressed or anything along those lines. Maybe you're looking for buses, vehicle cars. All of these are customization options that do require us to do a little bit more deep diving and learn the sites that we're looking for. However, once we do that learning and understand that, that can be repeated in larger sites that are out there. So let's say we've got an Amazon, or got something along those lines where they may have certain needs. This can be facilitated, the learning can be done, and it can be applied at those end user sites. Behavioral options. Perhaps we're looking for fallen persons or a person's detector or a violence detector. Maybe we want to do something to see if as easy as seeing if someone's eating or drinking or maybe even on their cell phones. These can all be designed and implemented in those type of sites. So here's a good case study. Brian, you want to dive into that case study for us?
Sure. So essentially, the original intent of the case study for this particular customer was occupancy control. They wanted to make sure that, given the current environment that we're in, that their capacity of their store was not exceeding recommendations. So their initial, and this relates to the modularity benefits of the AI box. They deployed the AI box to monitor and alert whenever the occupancy numbers reach a certain level. They were then able to turn around and realize that we can also add fall detection to our AI box, and that would help from a other aspects of retail business. They were also able to turn around and create zones for traffic flow. So what started off as a single analytic deployment allowed them to grow their analytics to implement other types of benefits for their day-to-day business. So the case study initially, occupancy control, grew into something that allowed them to expand across their supermarket chain.
Okay. And this will kind of dive in a little bit more of the capabilities with that. Brian, do you want to add into that as well?
So it ties right into the simplification that the AI box brings to this as a solutions platform. And it's a simple network appliance, a smart IoT device you put on your network. You bring the video feeds from your cameras or your recorders, whether it's an embedded box like a DVR or embedded NVR, or a server running a VMS platform. You bring those secondary streams into the box, simple configuration, apply the analytics. And again, using this case study, you can start off with just one analytic requirement. And then as your need grows, the box can grow with you. And that organic growth, if you will, is a great benefit that the box brings to the as a solutions platform. The intuitive interface of it makes it that much easier to deploy. So it's a great solution uh, for these type of scenarios.
Most certainly is. So in summary, compared to years past, AI is becoming more mainstream out there. It's starting to become a game changer with all the advantages that are available today. It's much more proactive. This means that it's much faster response to security incidents. Uh, Keep in mind that this can't necessarily replace human interaction, but as a tool combined with more traditional security methodology, we certainly can provide a much more robust and efficient security solution to the systems that might be out there today or to some of the aspects of the needs that you have out there today as it relates to creating events and maintaining a lower cost per incident. With that, I think we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're going to unmute everybody just to chime in, but we are watching the chat. So if anyone wants to put their questions into the chat, We can go through them and and get some great answers.
Or you can unmute yourself too.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good morning.
So I have a question for you. So, with AI stuff, trying to integrate into IMAX has been a big thing for us with video monitoring. And we've used your Gains AI 8, which I know you do the 4 and 16 now, but to try to get away, excuse me, trying to get away from having multiple devices, we're running a demo license right now, your Control Premiere.
Okay, our cultural software.
Yep. So I just loaded that yesterday, and got my analytic licenses up and running. I had to set all that stuff up today. Um, so with that, that's basically the same as the Games AI box, just it's an all-in-one right on the PC itself. Correct?
Correct. Think of a VMS based AI as just a larger version of the AI box. It's the advantages from a VMS side is that you can deploy it on a larger hardware platform. It does incur a greater cost than the AI box solution presents, but the reason why there's multiple solutions is because not one solution fits all requirements. So in terms of the Quartrol VMS, you've got the advantages of a built-in analytics option that you can license, that can be offloaded to your graphics card if you have an NVIDIA graphics card and you're running the latest version of Quartrol, which would be the 1.21 version.
Okay. And so one thing that I did speak with somebody about it, they said basically, like you said, you have to run some form of a minimum of 2 gigs on a graphics card. And if you don't have any form of a graphics card, you can utilize your RAM to work harder to do the AI. Is that correct?
Well, this is more of a troubleshooting question.
Okay.
It sounds like you may have, so this may be something better to take offline. I'll answer the question real quick in this fashion. The Quartrol can either utilize your CPU or it can utilize an NVIDIA graphics card. If you are utilizing CPU deployment, then there is an additional memory requirement in that scenario. If you're using a graphics card, it's going to depend on what your deployment requirements are, and there's a calculator that helps you figure that out.
Gotcha.
So, and this is just something that recommendation would be to reach out to our support team and really go through a lot of those details.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think I saw another question.
Yep, I just saw it. Noel posted a question: can the AI box be powered through PoE? Unfortunately, no. It does require external power. It does include that power brick and power cord to the brick. But because of the demands of AI, if you're talking about a camera, the camera has limited AI requirements or AI resources available, like very limited, where you only have a handful of potential, what I would call light AI requirements, such as a zone with object classification and that object entering the zone. It's not necessarily going to give you many AI or deep learning based functions. And the way I would distinguish the difference is analytic in terms of the term analytic means I've got a zone, I've got a line, and I'm detecting an object coming into it. And the analytics may give you the option of basic classification of that object. And that classification is usually based off of size, speed, volume that the object occupies in order for the AI to give an estimate of, hey, this is a person versus a vehicle. Where the AI comes into play is the AI has been trained to recognize that the object in the image is actually a person versus a vehicle, not necessarily based off of volume and size, but by the same way the human eye would look at a picture and say, okay, I recognize that as a person or a vehicle. So the AI sits in conjunction with the analytic. The analytic will say, okay, I have an object that just crossed into my zone. I think it's a person. The AI will then look at it and through its algorithm say that is indeed a person or that is not a person. If it's not a person, the AI kills the event right then and there, and there's no false positive generation. If the AI agrees with the analytic and says, you know what, that is a person, then it okays the event and sends it along to be escalated. So that requires a little bit more power than what a standard camera would require, which is why there's an external requirement for it. Ashley has asked a question. The AI box can integrate with cultural events and actions. Yes. Can it be used for auto deploying a separate camera PTZ to that zone for activation? So in other words, you want to use the AI box analytic to tell Quartro to maneuver a PTZ basically to activate a preset for that PTZ. There is a way to do it. In a short description, the AI will act as the event generator. So the AI will confirm or deny that the cause of the event is something that needs to be escalated. If it is something that needs to be escalated, Qualtroll can then be told to take the action of activating a preset for that PTZ that would send it to pointing at the direction or at the location where the event has been triggered. Here's another one. Noel has asked, can the AI box be connected to a more sophisticated cloud to handle more analytics? Yes, that is the reason for the API on the AI box. So the AI box has the API built into it. There's no NDA required for it. If you have the AI box, you have access to the API. And you can basically create a script, whether it's a JSON-based script or a Python-based script, whatever you're familiar with from a scripting perspective for the API of the AI box and the API of the cloud to shake hands. That's a great question, actually. So
Yeah,
yes.
add to that, Brian. Also, we're utilizing that consistently on the export as it relates to facial recognition and other pieces right now. So that is relevant.
Yep. Okay. We've still got time for a few more questions. So while we're waiting on questions, I'll clarify from the camera perspective. So generally, if you've got existing cameras, if they're analog cameras, they may be going through an encoder or through a DVR. As long as that encoder or that DVR supports RTSP streaming or has OnViv support, the box can communicate with that DVR and pull those streams in so that you can apply it to those channels. And the same thing goes with IP-based devices. As long as RTSP stream is supported and the OnViv protocol is supported, there is a way for the box to communicate with those devices. So it becomes a very robust and widely deployable solution. Let's see, what is the cost of the AI box? So the problem with that question is that we can only give an MSRP cost. And most people will go to their distributor or they'll go to their sales rep, and they probably have predetermined vendor costs. So saying the cost of the box, it's an MSRP price. It's somewhat misleading because at the end of the day, most people aren't paying that price. So if you're interested in the MSRP pricing, I mean, we can definitely reach out to you and let you know what that is. It's very cost effective from my understanding. Don, you wouldn't happen to know the estimated per channel cost of the AI box, would you?
Yep, I'll have to bring it up off the price list, though. I would say that in most cases, depending upon which hardware platform we're utilizing, I would say it ranges anywhere from about 100 to $150 a channel, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But you
So
know, it's very cost effective, and the most beautiful thing about this is we're not diving into your RMR. So many of the scrubs that are out there, so many of the server-based solutions that are out there, they want to dive in to that piece of your pie. And frankly, we're not there. We're not looking for that. It's a one-time fee once you actually apply all.
So essentially, when you actually figure in what your actual cost for the AI box would be, you're essentially saving on both the upfront cost and the back end cost. Noah, what I would recommend is just reaching out to, you can reach out to Don. Don's one of our salesmen, and he
I'd
can
be
get
happy
you.
to help you with that. Where are you at, or no? Certainly, we could certainly get that handled for you.
In terms of the question of a support contract, that's something that can be discussed. From the manufacturing side, we don't have anything that is necessarily a support contract outside of our warranty, simply because usually that's something that is worked out between the sales rep or the distribution, depending on which direction you're working with to acquire the box. So, Noel, real quick, I was just checking. So since we have your email address as part of the sign up for this, we can send you contact information and get you further information on that AI box.
Matter of fact, I'll be sure to reach out to you shortly after this. No.
Okay, it looks like our time is running down. We're just about done. Any last minute questions before we start closing down? Okay. If there's no other questions, we want to thank everybody for coming to the webinar. We want to thank everyone for their questions, and wish everybody a very good day.